Representative Cox, you want to take the table and go with HB 14? Mr. Stormont, you want to go ahead and read the instrument to the record, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members, this is House Bill 14 by Representative Cox. It provides relative to homicide when the victim is a person with infirmities.
Representative Cox on your bill, and Mr. Alaman, welcome. Representative
Thank you,
Cox.
Madam Chair.
Okay, this is members of the committee. This is a very simple bill. It basically adds cruelty to persons with infirmities as a predicate felony to first and second degree murder, and to provide for related matters. If there are any questions, Ms. Tolman can regarding the related matters.
Thank you. And Rep. Walters, did you have a question for Representative Cox before we turn to Mr. Alaman? Thank you. Mr. Alaman, if you want to go ahead and state your name for the record.
Sure. Darren Alamon with the Jefferson Parish DA's office. Madam Chair, members, thanks for having me today, and we appreciate Representative Cox bringing this bill. To give a little background, we're all familiar with felony murder and felony manslaughter. Felony murder only covers certain specific enumerated felonies, whereas felony manslaughter covers any other felony. This body in 2006 made the wise decision to add cruelty to juveniles to the list for felony murder. Children are helpless. They're dependent on their caretakers. Well, this patches what I consider a hole in the law, because just as children are helpless, so are persons with infirmities. I'd like to give you more detail. I can't because it's an open case, but I'll give you a little background on what prompted this bill. We have a case in our parish where an intellectually disabled individual, severely intellectually disabled, under the care of his caretakers, they malnourished him, they repeatedly abused him, they made the guy sit on a toilet seat for like 8 hours at a time, developed severe sores. Due to being malnourished, he tried to open a can of canned goods with a knife, ended up stabbing himself in the leg. They just barely put on a dressing on his wound, left the house to go return fried chicken. They came back and the gentleman had passed away due to his neglect and maltreatment. One of our most senior prosecutors screened the case and came to me and asked, "Why isn't this felony murder?" I told her, we can certainly fix the law on that. We're always looking at this. While we can't get this gentleman the justice he deserves, we can certainly, in his name, protect future victims. And that's essentially what this bill does. It recognizes that just as children are helpless, so are persons with infirmities. And to give a little more background, because this may come up, there's a case from the Louisiana Supreme Court from 2012, State v. Small. You may hear arguments that State v. Small prevents this bill from going forward. State v. Small essentially said that for felony murder with cruelty to juveniles, you can't use as a predicate negligent failure to supervise. State v. Small, I read it a lot more narrowly than some do. I certainly think the level of maltreatment here is above and beyond what we saw in State v. Small. I don't think that would bar prosecution here. I don't think it would bar this bill, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Alaman. Representative Knox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir, for being here. I do have a question or two. Infirmities, is that a legal definition or is that a general definition?
It is, Representative Knox. It's defined in the cruelty to persons with infirmity statutes as persons who are aged, which I believe is 65 years or older, which is also the demarcation for first-degree rape based on age, elderly victim, and it also includes persons with physical or intellectual disabilities that render them unable to care for themselves.
That's a question that I was going to ask if it included that, because on my personal level, I have a relative, a nephew who has who's autistic and nonverbal, and I happen to know that he had an unfortunate incident perpetrated against him and was unable to really speak about it. And when his mother found out about it, obviously she was upset. But this would include someone of that nature who has a disability, whether it's intellectual or otherwise?
Yes, Representative Knox, it would, and I appreciate your question. Yes, it would.
Thank you for that clarity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Knox. Rep. Walters.
Thank you, Representative Cox, for bringing this bill. I just wanted to take the opportunity to bring awareness that there is a heightened, I'm going to say, social media blitz, where we are seeing more and more people on social media mistreating, like intentionally mistreating people with infirmities and other ailments. And so thank you for this powerful piece of legislation.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you. We have green cards in support by Zach Daniels. President will provide information if requested. Executive Director of Louisiana District Attorneys Association. President's support does not wish to speak. Rachel Hurd with the Orleans District Attorneys Association. President's support does not wish to speak. Tom Costanza with the Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops. President's support does not wish to speak. Claire Howington with the 16th Judicial District Attorney's Office. President's support does not wish to speak. Billy Joe Harrington with the 10th Judicial District Attorney's Office. Kevin Cobb, President's support does not wish to speak. Executive Director of Louisiana Sheriff's Association. President's support does not wish to speak. Gary Bennett, Assistant Director of Louisiana Sheriff's Association. And President's support does not wish to speak. Christine Russell, District Attorney for the 17th Judicial District Attorney's Office. And President in opposition and would like to speak, Meg Garvey. Ms. Garvey.
Thank you, Chairwoman Megan Garvey, on behalf of Louisiana Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers in opposition to the bill. Once again, my opposition is very narrow. I obviously am concerned with protecting people with infirmities and anybody that lives in a vulnerable situation like that. Our concern here is that when you, oftentimes people who are caretakers for their family members, right, are sometimes they also have infirmities, sometimes they're elderly, et cetera. And so I am concerned about letting something that does not actually have the requisite intent to be a murder rise to that level here. I think that the story that we heard, while horrifying and terrible, would be eligible to be charged possibly as a manslaughter. And in that charge, there is a lot of room to fashion remedies that take into account the particular instance of what's going on with that person, what their intent was, et cetera. And so I do think that this is pushing things into the category of murder. They're not necessarily punishing somebody that has what we would consider the requisite mens rea to commit a murder. So that's my narrow objection on this. Thank you.
Rep. Knox for Ms. Garvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Garvey, I really want to understand the opposition, and please forgive me, I'm not tracking your logic to it. I was fully transparent and gave the example as it relates to my family member who's artistic and nonverbal. Fortunately, he's not dead, but in the unfortunate situation where he would have been killed, and the perpetrator was able to do so because he's nonverbal, because he has other ailments that would go under the definition of infirmity. So I'm trying to understand and appreciate, even in the narrow sense that you suggest, what is the issue that would satisfy you to make you want to be in favor of this? I guess that's the question I'm asking, because I'm confused as to why you're opposed to it.
Well, I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. Are you just talking about somebody that intentionally kills somebody who has an infirmity? Because that's murder under the law already. I mean, that's not what the bill does. So I just want to make sure that I'm answering.
Well, I want to
you're
make sure that
specifically
you're
asking.
understanding what I'm saying, that if a person has an infirmity, they have some ailment. To me, that's a higher degree of somebody killing somebody who's able to defend themselves like me. If a person has an infirmity, whether they elderly, whether they're autistic or not, they are not at the same advantage as you and I to
Absolutely.
defend themselves
Yes,
against
and
murders.
that's-
So I'm
yeah.
trying to understand,
No, that's-
what is your opposition to someone who's unable to physically and intellectually defend themselves as it relates to
I
this
don't have any
infirmity?
objection to having a higher standard of care for how we treat
Okay.
people who are vulnerable whatsoever.
Okay.
do not have an objection to that in particular.
Thank you for that
It's
clarity.
just calling something murder where there's not proof that that person is intentionally trying to do the things that cause the person's death. That's my only concern, is we're broadening the definition of murder, which is life in prison, and I do feel like we're including people who don't have the requisite mental intent, the requisite mens rea, the requisite intent that we normally think of as somebody who's a murderer. Obviously, people who are vulnerable need higher protection. I agree with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Knox. Rep. Bacala.
Just correct. I mean, the law still says you have to have specific intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm. We're not changing that. It still requires specific intent, correct?
It
Read
requires
first-degree murder. Specific intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm.
first degree, yeah. Second degree, under this, I believe, no.
And all laws, I mean, the intent is a piece of every puzzle, correct? This isn't, we're not saying that this is a negligent act, it's an intent.
So I guess we would have to go back to the definition of cruelty to look at that. But Rep. Bacala, to your specific question, yes, as to first degree murder, it does have a specific intent element to it. You are absolutely correct. As to the second degree
the second degree
murder,
murder has an intent, not necessarily an intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm, but is engaged or in these other crimes. So there's not an accidental armed robbery. There's not an accidental second-degree cruelty to juveniles. There's not an accidental cruelty to persons with infirmities. The only difference is, one, you trying to kill. The other one is you're committing an act that results in the death. I just want to be clear on that. I think it was a little unclear what your statement was. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Bacala. The board is clear. And Rep. Cox, you want to close on your bill?
I'd just like to ask to move it favorably.
We have a motion by Rep. Cox to move HB 14 favorably. Do we have any objections? Hearing none, let HB 14 be moved favorably. Thank you.